Hi guys, what is going on? Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to my channel where I focus on free-to-play, early game and mid-game stuff. Guys, I'm still on holiday. I apologize for any lack of quality. I hope it's not too irritating. Today's video is going to be on Senguin Maria. Pretty crazy champion in my opinion, and I want to look at her kit and talk about whether or not she's worth it, especially in mid-game and for free-to-play players. Because the essential question that we have to ask ourselves, is she good for PvE? Is she good for the general content or just for PvP? Because if, and that is the first impression that I had of her, she's only strong for PvP, then, that's usually means that she's a fun champion, that it's going to be interesting to have her and it's going to have some use in Siege and Live Arena and in PvP stuff, but she's not essential. And I want to talk about her being useful in PvE as well. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, I've looked at the different damage tests that other content creators did. Unfortunately, I can't do my tests on the test server myself because I don't have access. But I've looked at a fair bit of those testings, and her damage is pretty crazy. And we can utilize that damage in PvE as well. Now, she's no newt. She's no newt, at least from what I can see. She gets extra turns, yes, but Newt does a 3-time hitter due to enemy max HP and has crazy shenanigans on his kit as well next to that. So I feel like she's not absolutely essential, but she can really help you. And me on my account, I have Mikey, I have Raphael, I have 2 good damage dealers, but I feel like she might give me enough value that it does make sense for me personally to go for her. Even though I'm not especially looking for a damage dealer right now. That being said, she is going to help me on one of my Hydra teams, and on specific boss teams, she might help me as well. All right, so another thing that I want to touch on before we look at her kit is Leonardo. If we look at her and feel like we can go for her or want to go for her, but that would mean that we can't go for Leonardo, I feel like Leonardo is the more important champion. Looking at mid-game and early late game. If we look at really end game, it's more difficult. She has huge potential with her ignore defense, and yeah, I can't really give you a proper opinion on this because there is just too many things that are still unclear about her kit. But it seems like her potential is really, really high for end game, like the real end game. But that's not what I want to talk about too much here. I want to talk about mid-game and progression. And I feel like Leonardo really is more important. Like if you are on the brink, if you feel like, damn, I probably can't go for Leonardo if I go for her, I would prefer Leonardo over her. Always with the caveat that we still don't know what the guaranteed event for Leonardo is going to be. Just taking that with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to fearmonger here. I'm just trying to, keep all possibilities in mind that Plarium has in store for us. All right, guys, I think that's enough preamble. Let's actually look at her kit and look at her value and see where and why she might be useful for PvE as a damage dealer. First off, single target. Everything's single target, so we have to keep that in mind. Not amazing against waves. That being said, a bit of shenanigans or a possibility to do some AoE with her A3, but I really want to focus on her doing damage to bosses because this is very much conditional and it really depends on you setting up your team right, and it's not all that easy, and it also means some downsides. So yeah, let's not get into that too much here. Let's first look at her A1. Attacks an enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 33% chance of granting an extra turn. Cannot gain more than 1 turn. This already confused me when I read her kit first. Now, does that mean that she can't A1 extra turn, A1 extra turn, A1 extra turn? No, she can actually do that. It just means that we can't get an extra turn from her 2nd hit and then another extra turn from her 3rd hit. That's what this means. Looking at the chances here, 33%, I think I saw Nub Raids talk about this, saying that adds up to a 60 to 70% chance of an extra turn per A1, which is pretty strong. I wanted to add this up before this video, but having Nub Raids already having calculated that, I think that should be fine. And it makes sense. So 70 or round about 70% to get an extra turn on the A1, which is pretty crazy, and it will help us to cycle back to her other abilities much quicker, which is great. Now A2, 4-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy, will ignore 33% of the target's defense, will ignore 99 of the target's defense if this skill is used on a turn number that is divisible by 3. That is the important part for PvE, which is why I'm only reading that. I want to simple down her kit to really, to make it pretty clear for us where her value lies, her core value, and then she can do extra shenanigans. But like I said, simple down her kit. Now, this divisible by 3 part only counts her turns. So we can't like use Arbiter, another speed booster, and then use her and she's going to ignore 99% of the target's defense. That's not the way that it works. She actually counts her own turns, and so we would probably or possibly go in with the A3 because she has an extra turn effect. If we set that up right, there's always an if with her pretty confusing kit. So going in with the A3, hoping for an extra turn on the A1, and then we would have that 99% chance of ignoring the target's defense. If this is, well, on the first turn, that's always the case. Or on the, in the first round, that's always the case. But after that, we really have to look at her cooldowns because we want her to use the A2 always on her 3rd turn. And that is going to mean, and this is a big takeaway already, you will need to book her if you want to use her in PvE consistently. You'll need to book her. Like, we need to go through the shenanigans of this fusion, and then we'll definitely need to book her in order to get value out of her for PvE. That's just what it seems like. Because if it is on a 4-turn cooldown, this is just going to be used all over the place, and not on her 3rd turn, or a turn that is after the 3rd turn divisible by 3. So booking this, really important. And then we have the A3. Attacks an enemy. Before attacking, removes all buffs from all enemies. This is, very nice. I do want to touch on this quickly because it says this effect cannot be resisted by enemies with a number of buffs that is divisible by 3, and we can't rely on this. So I want to touch on this really quickly. If you want to use this, just build it with a bit of accuracy, and I think that isn't going to be too hard. Usually with fusions, we get 5-star souls for them if we have the resources to, do the events that Plarium wants to do. And just build it with a bit of accuracy and you're going to be fine for most content if you need her to remove buffs from the enemy. If you tackle content where this isn't important, then you can just leave out the accuracy. Another reason why I feel like it isn't too bad to build her with a bit of accuracy is ignoring 99% of the target's defense means that she is going to do crazy damage even if we have mid-game gear on her, which is pretty crazy. In endgame, this is going to scale, but even in mid-game, using mid-game gear, and we don't even need to use Stone Skin on her, it's going to help her other skills, but you would overcap on the ignore defense. So we don't even, not Stone Skin, Savage, or anything similar to that. We don't need to use gear that ignores defense, because she already does kind of 100% on her A2 anyways. So, it means that we can focus more on stats, and even with, like I said, mid-game stats, she's still going to do pretty crazy damage, which also allows us to build a bit of accuracy on her, in my opinion. Now, the A3 grants an extra turn if this champion is under a number of buffs that is divisible by 3. We can set this up. Another if here. We can set this up, but it is going to be a bit difficult. And that is the main disadvantage of her, that, we could build a team that brings only 3 buffs: increase attack, increase defense, increase speed, for example, if that is going to be enough survivability. If we bring a team like that, then it is going to mean that she is probably always going to use this and always going to get an extra turn. That being said, we would probably need some buff extenders. We would need to speed tune it to guarantee it. We would need to, or bring multiple champions with the buffs to make the chance of her having those buffs on her higher. And then she would get an extra turn. That being said, if you can't do that, if you don't want to do that, because, a lot of shenanigans going on anyways, if you don't want to do that, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's going to be it's going to mean she uses her A2, which is the big goal here. It means she isn't going to use her A2 as often, but it still means that it is oftentimes on a 2-turn cooldown, because we can't set this up. We can't, with the presets we have in the game, we can't set this up that she only uses this on a turn that's divisible by 3. Tell her to open up with her A1. Then we use A3, so Gore Scream, as her first choice. And then we use Sanguine Fissure as her second choice. And that is going to mean that she's always going to use Sanguine Fissure, A2, on her third turn from there on out, which is pretty great, which is pretty crazy. That being said, we can't pair her with anybody that does turn meter reduction and increase is fine, but cooldown reduction. We can't pair her with anybody with cooldown reduction, and she can't have cooldown reduction in her masteries. We can increase her turn meter as much as we like, but yeah, that's going to be another condition for her to use this on her third turn consistently. And that would mean that, like, under these conditions, she could put out pretty crazy damage. But, you know, like I said, it's always, there is an if. We do have to do a lot in order to set her up properly. Like I said, I think the least that we need to do is book her and then give her presets. Hope either build a team with 3 buffs or don't do it, depending on what we need and what we want and how important this is to us. And either way, even if she like uses this only on her third turn or every third turn, it's still going to be crazy damage on single target bosses. That's the main takeaway here, I think. And that is why she is going to be strong in places even like Hydra. She's going to be a strong damage dealer for Hydra, and that is also one of the big reasons why I'm trying to get her. I'm going to have a turtle team. That's great. And then I will have to, I will need more damage dealers. And like, I will probably not. I have a burner in, damn, I forgot her name. Elenarl. Thank God. I have a burner there, but apart from that, I don't really have a lot of damage dealers on my account for Hydra. And so that's why I'm mainly why I'm going for her. Also, we can't really see what potential she's going to have in the future. That's another bit of like problem here that we have. Like the FOMO, I always have trouble with fear of missing out. The FOMO is kicking. I've seen some pretty crazy tests where she goes into hard 10 dungeons, and she solos those. Crazy gear, 9-piece Merciless, 9-star soul, and that's not achievable for me, like, in the next 5 years. But her possibly getting a 5-star soul is going to mean that she might be able to solo other stuff, like not stage 10 hard, but maybe stage 24 normal, maybe stage 6 hard. Maybe only stage 20. In Fire Knight, for example, as well, by the way. She solos Fire Knight, which is crazy. Also, she might be able to do some shenanigans in, not Sand Devil, but Phantom Shogun. Iron Twins. There is a lot of possibilities. Like, don't take this for granted. It was Bronco who did this test. Don't feel like you really have to go for her because she is definitely going to do or going to be able to do these things in the future, but there is the possibility. Right, and this is mainly the case because of the damage mitigation that she has on the passive. And also she gets more damage from her passive, and also when she's dead and an enemy is revived, she also gets revived and places True Fear. So there is a lot of stuff to like. There is a lot of stuff going on here, and we haven't, I think, or have we? No, we haven't even talked about everything. Like the A2, if the target is killed by the skill, increases the cooldown of all enemies' skills by 3 turns. This effect cannot be resisted if this skill is used on a turn number that is divisible by 3. This is insane in Arena. She's almost always going to kill the enemy. And if we set her up right, that's always going to be on a turn divisible by 3. Like I said, PvP, definitely insane. PvE, a bit more difficult, but I feel like she can be a pretty crazy single target damage dealer. And that is why I'm probably going for her, and that is why I'm saying she is a good champion, even for mid-game players to go for. That being said, Leonardo is better, and also she's not essential. It's going to be a hard fusion, it's a mixed fusion, so we'll have to get fragments for the epics and then build up the 4 epics and fuse those 4 epics into Sanguine Maria. That's always like, I don't know if it's the hardest kind of fusion, but it's very similar to a usual, like a regular fusion, and it's going to be hard. I'm gonna try. I'm probably gonna go for it like the first couple of events, and then when I see that there is some crazy shenanigans going on and Plarium really makes it really hard for us to get her, then I might just jump out, or don't know how to say this, but you know, I might just stop going for her. But in the beginning, or at the moment, I feel like I want to go for her. She's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to break down her event calendar when that comes out, probably today, because the fusion should actually start today. But I'll see if I have the time. I might be a bit late, maybe just do that tomorrow. If I can't do it, just look at some other guys. Everybody's breaking down her fusion calendar, so I think that's not too important. But I really wanted to get this video out talking about mid-game and whether or not, and free-to-play, whether or not that is worth it. Because other content creators, they oftentimes look at endgame and they look at the craziness that is going on here, but they don't really look at progression in PvE. That being said, some mention it, some don't. You know, back and forth, some do, some don't. Guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope this video has been informative in a decent way, and I hope that, yeah, it has helped you to decide whether or not you want to go for her. Guys, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, bye.